Welcome to Science Store online classes.
Don't forget to like our video and subscribe our YouTube channel for all the updates.
Welcome to all my dear students. Today I am taking biology class, and that we are studying plant kingdom. Okay, we studied about the different classes of the plant, different divisions of the plant kingdom, and we last class we studied about the one more division, that is Gymnosperm. We have studied the general characters, how the roots are developed, how the plant body is there, and a different example we have studied under the Gymnosperm, and also we started with the reproductive structure. In this gymnosperms, you can see the development of the spores, that is microspores and megaspores. These are the two different kinds of spores. And megaspores are two different kinds of spores which is developed inside the microsporangia. Microsporangia and Megasporangia respectively. Okay, here these microspores and megaspore, two different kinds of spores are developed in the gymnosperm. This lead to the male gametophyte, this lead to the female gametophyte. Okay, this contains, these spores are present inside the sac-like structure, we'll call it as microsporangia, and these megaspores are present inside the sac-like structure. This sac-like structure we'll call it as Megasporangium, and this Megasporangium or these spores are attached with the leaf-like structure, that we'll call it as sporophyll. These spores along with the sporophyll arranged in a spirally arranged in a central axis and form a cone-like structure, that we'll call it as lax, strobilus or cone. Okay, it may be called as that cone-like structure. We'll call it as lax or strobilus or cone. Okay, here the female in male here microsporophyll along with the microsporangium, microsporophyll along with the microsporangium forms a male cone, that will call it as a microsporangiate or male cone. Okay, inside that they produces microspores. This microspores will give rise to the formation of female gametophyte, which is a reduced structure. The structure is highly reduced compared to previous type of the plant, andre alli dodda plant body develop agtade. But here we cannot find the well developed gametophytic structure. Here the structure, gametophytic structure is reduced and they and confined to only few cells. This only few microspores develop into a female gametophyte. That male gametophyte will call it as pollen grains. Very important. In this onwards, the male gametophyte is usually called as pollen grains. Usually in gymnosperms as well as in angiosperms, we will call male gametophyte as pollen grains. Here the pollen grains are developed inside the microsporangium, and after maturation it is dispersed to the outer environment. Outer environment ge idu disperse agtade. Next, same way here the Megasporangium Megasporophyll with Megaspore or ovule, Megasporangium or ovule. It is this Megasporangium, the entire structure is also called as ovule, collectively called as Megasporangiate or female cone. Megasporophyll, it is a leaf-like structure which bears Megasporangium. A leaf-like structure which bears Megasporangium is called as Megasporophyll. Okay, Megasporophyll along with Megasporangium form a cone-like structure. It form a cone-like structure. That cone we'll call it as Megasporangiate or female cone. You know, ಈ Megasporophyll Megasporangium ಅನ್ನು ಹೊಂದಿರುತ್ತದೆ at the base or on its surface. It contains Megasporangium, or it is also called as ovule, and these together form a cone like structure. That cone we'll call it as Megasporangiate or female cone. adanna Megasporangiate athava female cone anta heltare. This ovule innerly it contains, this is a structure of ovule. Okay, innerly it contains a multicellular structure. Innerly it contains a multicellular structure. We'll call it as nucellus. This region we'll call it as nucellus. This region, this is a nutritive part of the ovule ಅಥವಾ sporangium ಇದು nutritive part ಆಗಿರ್ತದೆ, and it is outerly covered by the outer covering or integument. We'll call it as integument. Okay, it is, or outerly it is covered with thick covering. Okay, and here this nucellus will give rise to the formation of spore mother cell. It give rise to the formation of spore mother cell. This is a spore mother cell. This is a spore mother cell formed inside the nucellus. Some of the nucellus give rise to the formation of spore mother cell or megaspore mother cell. Megaspore mother cell. This nucellus will give rise to the formation of megaspore mother cell. These megaspore mother cells are diploid in condition. Usually idella diploid condition alli irtade. Same way this megaspore also diploid in condition, where it contains two sets of chromosome, ಎರಡು set of chromosome ಅನ್ನು ಹೊಂದಿರುತ್ತದೆ. So these megaspores undergo meiotic division. It undergo meiotic division and produces 4 spores. It produces 4 haploid spores. It gave rise to undergo meiotic division. This spore mother cell undergo meiotic division and forms 4 megaspores. These are nothing but megaspores. Here, out of this, one megaspore will continue to develop. This one develop into female gametophyte. One of the female gametophyte is nothing but the separate gamete bearing structure. Gametophyte andre separate multicellular gamete bearing structure, will call it as female gametophyte. Here one of the megaspores will convert into or form into female gametophyte, and rest of the megaspores will degenerate. Okay, rest of the megaspore will degenerate, and this female gametophyte will give rise to the formation of archegonium. Female reproductive structure called archegonium. It gave rise to the formation of archegonium. Archegonium formation ಆಗ್ತದೆ, and this contain egg its base. Okay, 1 or 2 archegonium will be developed on inside the nucellus. Okay, all these stages takes place inside the nucellus only. Okay, here this female gametophyte will give rise to the formation of archegonium. Here now it becomes archegonium. 1 or 2 archegonia. Okay, here archegonia is nothing but a female reproductive structure. Okay, female gametophyte, it is nothing but the female gametophyte which bears egg. its base, and this egg is protected by the nutritive layer called nucellus, and it is outerly covered by a thick wall that we'll call it as integument. Okay, here after what happens, this male and female cones sometimes develop in a same plant. For example, Pinus. In Pinus, it contains both male and female gamete, male and female cone. Male and female cone are developed in a single plant. In case of cycas, male and female cones are developed in two different plants. Here both the male and female reproductive structure or male and female cone will not be developed in a same plant. They are confined to two different plants, but in case of Pinus, both are present in a same plant. Okay, Pinus alli ಎರಡು ಮೇಲ್ ಮತ್ತು ಫೀಮೇಲ್ ಕೋನ್ ಒಂದೇ ಪ್ಲಾಂಟ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಇರ್ತದೆ. ಇದರಲ್ಲಿ ಸೈಕಸ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಮೇಲ್ ಮತ್ತು ಫೀಮೇಲ್ ಕೋನ್ ಬೇರೆ ಬೇರೆ ಪ್ಲಾಂಟ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಡೆವಲಪ್ ಆಗ್ತದೆ. Okay, this is about the reproductive structure. Very important, how the pollen grains are formed. These pollen grains are nothing but the male gametophyte, which is produced from the microspores by the meiotic division or reduction division, and it is confined to only few cells, and it is a reduced structure. Here also the Megasporangium is also called as ovule. Inside this entire structure we'll call it as ovule. Idenತ entire structure microsporangia ಅಥವಾ ovule ಅಂತ ಹೇಳ್ತೇವೆ. Inside this microsporangium we can see the development of the gametes. Okay, we can see the developments of gametes, as in previous section also we have studied the microsporangium or the sporangium which bears the spores. Here also this megasporangium will bears the ovules, bears the eggs, that is female gametes. Female gametes are present inside this megasporangium or ovule. ಈ entire structure ಅನ್ನು ovule ಹೇಳ್ತಾರೆ. Later what happens, in gymnosperms, in bryophytes and pteridophytes, we have observed that these male and female gametophytes are developed separately, independently. They are free living, right? ಅಲ್ವಾ, ಬೇರೆ free living ಆಗಿರ್ತದೆ. But here both male and female gametophytes are present inside the sporophyte. We cannot see any independent development of the male and female gametophyte ಅಲ್ವಾ. ಇಲ್ಲೆಲ್ಲೂ separate ಬೇರೆನೇ ಆಗಿ grow ಆಗಲಿಲ್ಲ. Even pollen grains development also present inside the male cone, that is developed inside the male cone. Here female gametophyte also developed inside the ovule or the microsporangium, and it is not an independent structure. It is dependent on a sporophyte for its development and also for the further growth. Okay, and here what happens in gymnosperms, after maturation of this pollen grains, it is very small in structure, so it can easily carried from air current. Okay, it is easily carried from air from one place to another place. So this pollen grains, when it falls on the here small opening will be there. Okay, in ovule we can see small opening. Here the pollen grains will fall and they start to produce a pollen tube. Okay, they start to produce a pollen tube, and this pollen tube carries the male gamete. Here it carries the male gamete, and that fertilizes with the egg. Okay, that fertilizes with the egg and form the zygote. Okay, zygote later develop into embryo. Here this is ovule structure. This zygote develop into embryo, multicellular structure. Zygote ಏನಾಗ್ತದೆ, ಕನ್ವರ್ಟ್ ಆಗಿ embryo ಆಗ್ತದೆ. Embryo is nothing but a multicellular structure, and the entire structure will become the seed. This entire structure with embryo called as seed. Okay, this entire structure, this thick coating. Here it is outerly with a thick coating, and internally it contains some reserve food material for the growth of embryo. Embryo growth agಲಿಕ್ಕೆ ಸ್ವಲ್ಪ food material store ಆಗಿರ್ತದೆ, and this entire structure, this entire ovule develop into after complete maturation, after complete development of the embryo becomes the seed. Here this seed is outerly not covered by any fruit wall. ಇಲ್ಲಿ seed outerly ಯಾವುದೇ fruit wall ಅನ್ನ ಹೊಂದಿರುವುದಿಲ್ಲ. So this will call it as seed. Okay, very important. Seed will be developed. Okay, finally we'll study which are the different examples given for gymnosperms. Pinus, cycas, which is a Pinus is a branched tree structure. Here cycas is a unbranched tree or shrub, and cedrus is also type of the conifers, which is also branched structure, show branched tree structure, and Gingko. One more important gymnosperms is Gingko. Here the Gingko, in Gingko we can see the leaf structure like this. Like this leaf will be present, and this Gingko is also called as living fossils because very less number of Gingko plants or the gymnosperms, Gingko gymnosperms are seen, so they are called as living. They are extincting, their population become decreasing day by day, so it is also called as living fossils. Living fossils ಅಂದರೆ only few areas in Chinese countries ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಮಾತ್ರ ಈ ಗಿಂಕೋ plant develop ಆಗ್ತದೆ, where you can see well developed seeds, well that is somewhat radiant red color seed will be developed in Gingko. These are the few examples for your gymnosperm plant. Okay, these are the few examples for gymnosperms plant. Okay, next we'll move to the one more topic. That is one more class, that is angiosperms. One more class, that is angiosperms. Here one more class, that is angiosperms. Very important plants. Here usually in angiosperms, which higher plants is all the higher plants which comes under the division angiosperms. These angiosperms bear seed with fruit wall. Seed with fruit wall. So angio means fruit, wall means these seeds. Okay, seeds, this seed contain fruit walls, that all that seed with the fruit wall comes under the division angiosperms. Here usually these all the reproductive structure is developed in a separate evolved modern structure that will call it as flower. Here this reproductive structure is developed in a specialized and attractive structure, attractive organ, that is flower. ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಮೇಲ್ ಮತ್ತು ಫಿಮೇಲ್ ಗ್ಯಾಮೆಟ್ ಒಂದು ಅಟ್ರಾಕ್ಟಿವ್ ಸ್ಟ್ರಕ್ಚರ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಡೆವಲಪ್ ಆಗ್ತದೆ, ಅದನ್ನು ನಾವು ಫ್ಲವರ್ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳ್ತೇವೆ. ದೇ ಮೇ ಬಿ ವೆರಿ ಅಟ್ರಾಕ್ಟಿವ್ ರೇಡಿಯಂಟ್ ಕಲರ್ ಇರ್ತದೆ. ದೇ ಪ್ರೊಡ್ಯೂಸ್ ನೆಕ್ಟರ್ ಆ್ಯಂಡ್ ಆಲ್ಸೋ they produce beautiful petals that will attract the animals or the birds or the insect for pollination. Okay, that you are going to study in later classes. Here mainly these angiosperms are further divided into two main types. Okay, two main classes. You can see the angiosperms into two main classes. First one is dicotyledonnae. Dicotyledons or dicots. Dicots, this is also simply called as dicots, and monocotyledons. Monocotyledons or monocots. Okay, this is a two main classes of the angiosperm division. Angiosperm is the main classes. Here usually in dicot we can see taproot system. Here in angiosperm, in monocots you can see fibrous root system. That you are going to study while studying what is taproot and what is fibrous root in detail while studying the morphology. Fibrous roots. Here the leaf is reticulate, the venation. If you see the leaf when on the light, you can see the network like structure, network like venation, that will call it as reticulate venation. Reticulate venation, and here we can see parallel venation. In dicot leaf you can see reticulate venation like this alva, ee tara venation irtade. If you observe clearly, you can get network like venation. Okay, this will call it as reticulate venation, but in case of monocots you can see parallel venation. Here one veins are parallel to one another. Here the veins are parallel to one another, like this structure you can see. Okay, and next it contains two cotyledons. Mainly these dicots contain two cotyledons. In their seeds or in their seeds you can see two cotyledons. That's why this is technically called as dicotyledons plants. And here one cotyledon. Here you can see only one cotyledons, and here the flowers are tetramerous or pentamerous. Flowers are tetramerous or pentamerous. Here usually trimerous. Tetramerous or pentamerous means the petals, the number of petals are 4 or multiples of 4. Here the pentamerous means, penta means, tetra means 4, merous means petals. Okay, here remember tetra means 4 petal containing flowers are flower condition, will call it as tetramerous. Here it may contain 4 petals or multiples of 4. Penta means 5 petal containing flowers are called as that condition, will call it as pentamerous. So here it contains 5 petals or multiples of 5. Usually it contains 5 petals or multiples of 5. Usually trimerous means, tri means 3. So here 3 petals are present or multiples of 3 petals are there. These are the major difference between monocot and dicot plant. Okay, these are the main difference between the monocot and dicot plants. Okay, one is taproot system, here fibrous root system, reticulate venation, here you can see parallel venation, and here 2 cotyledons are there, here 1 cotyledon is there. Here the petals, flower petals are tetramerous condition or pentamerous condition, that means 4 or multiples of 4, 5 or multiples of 5. Here trimerous condition you can see, petals are 3 or multiples of 3 you can see. Okay, next we will move to the reproductive organs. Here the size of the angiosperm plant varies. The smallest angiosperm is Wolffia. Here the smallest angiosperm is Wolffia, which is very small, a single small leaf like structure will be there, and very small flower, microscopic flower, very small leaf with a microscopic flower which usually grow on the aquatic condition. ನೀರಿನ ಮೇಲೆ ನೀವು ಕೆಲವೊಮ್ಮೆ ನೋಡಿದಾಗ ಗದ್ದೆಲೆಲ್ಲ ಒಂದು ಚಿಕ್ಕ ಲೀಫ್ ಥರದ್ದು ಪ್ಲಾಂಟ್ಸ್ ಗ್ರೋ ಆಗ್ತದೆ. ದಟ್ ಈಸ್ ನಥಿಂಗ್ ಬಟ್ ದ ಸಮ್ lemna or wolfia which is having a single leaf like structure with a very small flowers, microscopic. We cannot see the flowers, so simply we'll call it simply we see the small leaf like structure. The flowers are microscopic which is observed only under the microscope, and microscope under ittaga matra adu flower anteli consider ಮಾಡ್ಲಿಕ್ಕೆ ಆಗ್ತದೆ. Otherwise we cannot see the flowers. So this comes under Angiosperm. Smallest plant is Wolfia and largest tallest Angiosperm is Eucalyptus, which measures up to 100 meters. Which measures up to 100 meters. Eucalyptus, Nilgiri heltaralla, Nilgiri mara, that measures up to 100 meters. This is the tallest Angiosperm, and smallest one is Wolfia. Maybe ask for 1 mark, you have to write this example, smallest and largest Angiosperm. Here usually all the angiospermic plant will flower, and all these reproductive structure are developed in flowers. Okay, flowers alli reproductive structure develop ಆಗ್ತದೆ. Sometimes it may be adapted to other means of reproduction, but they flowers. All the angiospermic plants having a flowers, but because of the various environmental condition these flowers will not give rise to the seed formation ಆಗಲಿಕ್ಕೆ ಸಾಧ್ಯ ಆಗುವುದಿಲ್ಲ. ಯಾಕಂದರೆ ಬೇರೆ ಬೇರೆ ವಾತಾವರಣದಿಂದಾಗಿ ಅದು ಫ್ಲವರ್ ಅನ್ನು ಫ್ರೂಟ್ಸ್ ಅನ್ನು ಪ್ರೊಡ್ಯೂಸ್ ಮಾಡಲಿಕ್ಕೆ ಆಗುವುದಿಲ್ಲ. ಓಕೆ, ದೀಸ್ ಆರ್ ದ ಮೇಜರ್ ಡಿಫರೆನ್ಸ್. ಓಕೆ, ನೆಕ್ಸ್ಟ್ ವಿಲ್ ಮೂವ್ ಟು ದ ರಿಪ್ರೊಡಕ್ಟಿವ್ ಸ್ಟ್ರಕ್ಚರ್ ಆಫ್ ದ Angiosperm. This difference may be asked. Okay, here the flowers contain a female reproductive structure called as stamens. The male reproductive structure will call it as stamens, and female reproductive structure called pistil or carpel. Pistils or carpel. Male reproductive structure will call it as male reproductive structure is called as stamens. Female reproductive structure is called as pistil. Here stamen contains a thin slender filament with its anterior end. It contains at its anterior surface it contains a lobed structure. This is a filament. Okay, this thin slender filament like structure will call it as filament. At its anterior side you can see the lobed structure which bears microspores or pollen grains which lead to the production of pollen grains. ಈ region ಅಲ್ಲಿ pollen grains develop ಆಗ್ತದೆ. ಈ region ಅನ್ನು anther ಅಂತ ಹೇಳ್ತಾರೆ. This is anther. Okay, this is anther, and the stalk like structure which bears anther is called as filament. ಈ ಸ್ಟಾಕ್ ಲೈಕ್ ಸ್ಟ್ರಕ್ಚರ್ ಇರ್ತದಲ್ಲ, ಆಂಥರ್ ಅನ್ನು ಹೋಲ್ಡ್ ಮಾಡುವ ಸ್ಟಾಕ್ ಲೈಕ್ ಸ್ಟ್ರಕ್ಚರ್ ಅನ್ನು ಫಿಲಮೆಂಟ್ಸ್ ಹೇಳ್ತಾರೆ. ಆ ಲೋಬ್ಡ್ ಸ್ಟ್ರಕ್ಚರ್ ಅನ್ನು ಆಂಥರ್ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳ್ತಾರೆ. ಇನ್ಸೈಡ್ ದಿಸ್ ಆಂಥರ್ ಯು ಕ್ಯಾನ್ ಸಿ ದ ಡೆವಲಪ್ಮೆಂಟ್ ಆಫ್ ದ pollen grains. You can see the development of the pollen grains. Here pistil contain a swollen base will call it this swollen base will call it as ovary. ಈ swollen base ಅನ್ನು ovary ಅಂತ ಹೇಳ್ತಾರೆ. Inside this you can see ovule. Inside this you can see the ovules, and it forms a long stalk-like structure that we'll call it as style, and at the tip you can see the receptor for the pollen grains ಅನ್ನು ರಿಸೀವ್ ಮಾಡುವಂಥ ಒಂದು ಸ್ಟ್ರಕ್ಚರ್ ಇರ್ತದೆ, ಅದನ್ನು ಸ್ಟಿಗ್ಮಾ ಹೇಳ್ತಾರೆ. That structure we'll call it as pollen receiving structure, we'll call it as stigma, and the stalk like structure where it facilitate the germination of the pollen grains or the formation of the pollen tube, that we'll call it as style. And at the base swollen structure we can see that is ovary, and inside the ovary you can see the presence of ovule. This entire structure we'll call it as pistil or carpel. ಈ ಎಂಟೈರ್ ಸ್ಟ್ರಕ್ಚರ್ ಅನ್ನ ಪಿಸ್ಟಿಲ್ ಅಥವಾ ಕಾರ್ಪೆಲ್ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳ್ತಾರೆ. ಹಿಯರ್ ದಿಸ್ ಎಂಟೈರ್ ಸ್ಟ್ರಕ್ಚರ್ ಇಟ್ ಕಂಟೈನ್ಸ್ ಮೆನಿ ಆಂಥರ್ಸ್. ಓಕೆ, ಹಿಯರ್ ದಿಸ್ ಸ್ಟೇಮನ್ಸ್ ಮೇ ಕಂಟೈನ್ ಮೆನಿ ದಿಸ್ ಸ್ಟ್ರಕ್ಚರ್, ಆಂಥರ್ ಕಂಟೈನಿಂಗ್ ಸ್ಟ್ರಕ್ಚರ್ ಇರ್ತದೆ. ಸೊ ದಿಸ್ ಕಲೆಕ್ಟಿವ್ಲಿ ಕಾಲ್ಡ್ ಆಸ್ ಸ್ಟೇಮನ್ಸ್ ಆರ್ ಸ್ಟೇಮನ್. ಇದು ಒಂದು ಸ್ಟ್ರಕ್ಚರನ್ನು ಸ್ಟೇಮನ್ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳ್ತಾರೆ. ಇದೇ ಥರದ್ದು ಮೆನಿ ಸ್ಟ್ರಕ್ಚರ್ಸ್ ಇದೆ. ಇಫ್ ಇಟ್ ಕಂಟೈನ್ಸ್ ಸೇಮ್ ಸ್ಟ್ರಕ್ಚರ್ in many numbers, then we'll call it as stamens. And ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಇದೇ ಸ್ಟ್ರಕ್ಚರ್ ತುಂಬ ಇದ್ದರೆ ಅದನ್ನು pistils ಅಂತ ಹೇಳ್ತಾರೆ. ಓಕೆ, pistils. S will be plural, S will be added. Here also S will be added. ಒಂದಕ್ಕೆ ಸ್ಟೇಮನ್ ಅಥವಾ ಪಿಸ್ಟಿಲ್ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳ್ತಾರೆ. ಮೆನಿ ಇದ್ರೆ ಸ್ಟೇಮನ್ಸ್ ಆರ್ ಪಿಸ್ಟಿಲ್ಸ್ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳ್ತಾರೆ. ದ ನಂಬರ್ ವೇರೀಸ್. ಹಿಯರ್ ಕಾರ್ಪೆಲ್ ಹೇಳ್ತಾರೆ. ಹಿಯರ್ ಮೆನಿ, ಇಫ್ ಮೆನಿ ಕಾರ್ಪೆಲ್ಸ್ ಆರ್ ಪ್ರೆಸೆಂಟ್ ದೆನ್ ಇಟ್ ಈಸ್ ಕಾಲ್ಡ್ ಆಸ್ ಕಾರ್ಪೆಲ್ಸ್. ಓಕೆ, ಇಟ್ ಮೇ ಬಿ ದಟ್ ಕಂಡೀಷನ್ ಮೇ ಬಿ ಪೆಂಟಾಮಿರಸ್, ಟೆಟ್ರಾಮಿರಸ್. ಅಂದರೆ 4 ಕಾರ್ಪೆಲ್ಸ್ ಇದ್ದರೆ ಪೆಂಟಾಮಿರಸ್, ಟೆಟ್ರಾಮಿರಸ್ ಹೇಳ್ತಾರೆ. 5 ಇದ್ದರೆ ಪೆಂಟಾಮಿರಸ್ ಕಂಡೀಷನ್ ಹೇಳ್ತಾರೆ. ಸಾರಿ, ಪೆಂಟಾ ಕಾರ್ಪೆಲ್ಲರಿ ಕಂಡೀಷನ್, ಟೆಟ್ರಾ ಕಾರ್ಪೆಲ್ಲರಿ ಕಂಡೀಷನ್, ಟ್ರೈ ಕಾರ್ಪೆಲ್ಲರಿ ಕಂಡೀಷನ್ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳ್ತಾರೆ. ದಟ್ ಯು ಆರ್ ಗೋಯಿಂಗ್ ಟು ಸ್ಟಡಿ ಇನ್ ಡೀಟೇಲ್ಸ್ ಇನ್ ಲೇಟರ್ ಕ್ಲಾಸಸ್. ಓಕೆ, ಹಿಯರ್ ಯೂಶುವಲಿ ದಿಸ್ ಯು ಕ್ಯಾನ್ ಸಿ angiosperm, they may grow as the size, based on the size this plant may be differentiated into 3 main types, that is herbs. Okay, herbs ಅಂದರೆ ವೆರಿ ಸ್ಮಾಲರ್ ಪ್ಲಾಂಟ್ ಅನ್ನು ಹರ್ಬ್ಸ್ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳ್ತಾರೆ, ವಿಚ್ ಮೆಷರ್ಸ್ ಅಪ್ ಟು ಫ್ಯೂ ಸೆಂಟಿಮೀಟರ್ ವರೆಗೆ ಮಾತ್ರ ಗ್ರೋ ಆಗ್ತದೆ. ಆ್ಯಂಡ್ shrubs which measures up to certain meters. Okay, within a meter ಒಳಗೆ ಗ್ರೋ ಆಗುವಂತಹ 2 to 3 meters ಒಳಗೆ ಗ್ರೋ ಆಗುವಂತಹ ಪ್ಲಾಂಟ್ಸ್ ಅನ್ನು shrubs ಅಂತ ಹೇಳ್ತಾರೆ. ಆ್ಯಂಡ್ ಲಾರ್ಜರ್ ವಿಚ್ ಗ್ರೋ ಬಿಯಾಂಡ್ 5 meters or beyond these shrubs, the length of the angiosperm or the plant beyond the shrubs, that we'll call it as trees. Okay, based on the size we can differentiate the plants into the angiospermic plant into 3 main groups: herb, shrubs and trees. Okay, next in addition to that, can you also see the well developed leaf system? Here in angiosperms you can see well developed leaf system, stem system. Okay, with the stem system, and also you can see the presence of roots, well developed root system. And also in gymnosperms and angiosperms you can see well developed vascular system. Compared to pteridophytes, you can see well developed vascular system in gymnosperms as well as angiosperms. In gymnosperm also you can see well developed leaf system, stem system and root system. Along with that you also studied few association of the root in gymnosperms. Here also you can see the association of mycorrhizal association in few plants. Here also you can see the mycorrhizal association. Don't get confused, it is not given, but there are also presence of mycorrhiza in roots. Okay, these are the few general characters of the angiosperms. Okay, we'll study the life cycle of gymnosperms. We'll continue with the next class about the angiosperm, how fertilization takes place. Let us let us draw the diagram of life cycle in brief. Okay, brief ಆಗಿ gymnosperm ಇದ್ದು life cycle ಅನ್ನು draw ಮಾಡ್ತಾರೆ. Okay, here the main plant body is sporophytic, right alva? Sporophytic plant body. Dominant phase is sporophytic, which is diploid in condition alva, diploid condition alli irtade. So it give rise to the formation of two main structures. Sporophyte alli two main structure develop ಆಗ್ತದೆ. ಯಾವುದು? male cone and female cone, or male strobilus or female strobilus, one and the same. Here male cone give rise to the formation of microspores. Here it give rise to the megaspore formation. Later these megaspore and microspore are haploid in condition. This may be diploid in condition. This may be diploid in condition, which give rise to a haploid spores. This haploid spores will give rise to the male gametophyte. Okay, male gametophyte, also called as pollen grain. Here the female gametophyte is developed from the, here meiosis takes place. Okay, here it is a formation of female gametophyte is also called as archegonium. This will fuse. The fusion takes place and it forms zygote. This will lead to the formation after the fusion of this pollen grains and archegonium. Archegonium contain egg. Okay, at the base it contain egg. The pollen grain fertilizes with the egg and forms a zygote. Zygote will lead to the formation of embryo, and embryo lead to the formation of seed, and seed later develop into a sporophyte. This is a life cycle of the gymnosperm life cycle. Again I'll explain. First, the main plant body is called as sporophyte. Which lead to the which give rise to the formation of spores. So it contains two main structure called male cone or female cone, male strobilus or female strobilus, or microsporangiate or megasporangiate, that undergo meiotic division and produces microspore or megaspore. Okay, microspore and megaspore. This later develop into a microspore mother cell or megaspore mother cell. That is not needed. This few microspore develop into a reduced gametophytic structure called male gametophyte, or in case of female cone, it gave rise to megaspore, it gave rise to female gametophyte. It is also called as pollen grains. Here it is called as archegonium or ovule. Okay, egg. It contains this female gametophyte present inside a megasporangium, that will call it as ovule. Okay, a megasporangium entire nucellus outer covering along with the archegonium, it is called as ovule. Entire structure anna ovule anta heltare. So this here pollen grains fuses with the egg of the archegonium and form a zygote, which is diploid in condition. These are haploid in condition. Single set of chromosome anna hondirtade and diploid condition ಗೆ ಬರ್ತದೆ. Diploid condition undergo this zygote, unicellular zygote undergo division, mitotic division ಆಗ್ತದೆ, ಅಂದ್ರೆ equational division ಆಗ್ತದೆ. ಒಂದು cell ಇಂದ ಎರಡು daughter cells ಆಗ್ತದೆ. So as the division takes place, embryo get formed. Embryo lead to the formation of seed. Maturation of the embryo lead to the formation of seed. Seed on the dispersal to the outer environment. When it get a favorable condition, it forms again one more new plant, that is sporophytic plant. Okay, new gymnospermic plant ಗೆ lead ಆಗ್ತದೆ. So usually the seeds are resistant structure. Okay, here it can withstand any adverse environmental condition, so it can stay for a long time in outer environment. When there is a written of favorable condition, this start to germinate, the seeds start to germinate and produce the sporophyte. Okay, so usually in all the cases spores ಅಥವಾ ಈ seed development at the end of the season ಆಗ್ತದೆ. ಯಾಕಂದರೆ ಆ ಸೀಡ್ಸ್ ಉಂಟಲ್ಲ ರೆಸಿಸ್ಟೆಂಟ್ ಫೀಚರ್ ಅನ್ನು ಹೊಂದಿರ್ತದೆ. ಅಂದರೆ ಯಾವುದೇ ಅಡ್ವರ್ಸ್ ಕಂಡೀಷನ್ ಬಂದಾಗ it is having a resistant property, so it can withstand till up to the favorable return of the favorable condition. Usually ಈ ಜಿಮ್ನೋಸ್ಪರ್ಮ್ ಅಥವಾ ಯಾವುದೇ ರೈನಿ ಸೀಸನಲ್ಲಿ ಗ್ರೋ ಆಗೋದಾದರೆ it wait up to the rainy season, wait till the rainy season, again just seed germinate and give rise to sporophyte. Here ಯಾಕೆ ಮಿಯೋಸಿಸ್ ಆಗೋದಂದರೆ ಏನಾಗ್ತದೆ, ಇಲ್ಲಿ 2n ಕಂಡೀಷನ್ ಇದ್ದರೆ 2n ಫ್ಯೂಸ್ ಆದರೆ ಏನಾಗ್ತದೆ 4n ಆಗ್ತದೆ. ಆಗ ಒಂದು ಸೆಲ್ ಕಂಟೈನ್ 4 ಸೆಟ್ ಆಫ್ ಕ್ರೋಮೋಸೋಮ್, ದಟ್ ಈಸ್ ನಾಟ್ ಅ ನಾರ್ಮಲ್ ಕಂಡೀಷನ್. ಅಗೇನ್ if 4 cell 4 ಓಕೆ ಒಂದು ಕಂಡೀಷನ್ ಆಯಿತು, 4 cell again it fuses form a 8 set of chromosome. So this as this process continues, the upcoming organism contain large number of chromosomes that may be unfavorable, or that leads to the death or the unfertility in the organism. It becomes infertile. So in order to avoid that condition, the nature formed a special type of cell division, or that division will call it as meiosis, where it reduces the chromosome number, by this division, and so the intact number of chromosome will be remained till the generation after generation, the chromosome number will remain the same. Okay, because of this meiotic division ಅಲ್ವಾ. ಹೀಗಾಗಿ meiotic division very important. ಏನಾಗ್ತದೆ, ಇಲ್ಲದಿದ್ದರೆ meiotic division ಇಲ್ಲದಿದ್ದರೆ the number of chromosome goes on increasing from one generation to another generation, that lead to the infertile development of the infertile organisms, or that may lead to the that is not possible to live in a normal environmental condition. Okay, this is important. We'll continue with the angiosperm in next class. Thank you, students.
Don't forget to like our video and subscribe our YouTube channel for all the updates.